Hi, everybody, and welcome back to yet another cracking edition of the Matt Brown Show. This is the Built in California series where I'm connecting you to visionaries, entrepreneurs, founders, changing the world as we know it. And with me on the line is the founder and CEO of Revel, Revel.xyz. If you are interested, his name is Addie Sideman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Matt.
Well, the privilege is all mine, man. So, look, let's get into the show. So, I always start with you, because our viewers and audience around the world probably haven't heard much about you. And for those of you who haven't, I'd love for you just to paint a bit of a picture for us around your background, Addie, and the origin story to Revel.
Sure. Thank you for asking. I'm a serial entrepreneur. My background is in consumer media. My original claim to fame was that I engineered and produced the Matrix movie the Matrix game for the movie The Matrix back in '99. And after that, really focused on a lot of user-generated media application, what was called at the time before social media, create and share, enabling consumers and non-programmers, non-professionals to express themselves through media. So make your own MTV music video, make your own Coca-Cola halftime show, make your own karaoke, which we spun off, and it was sold to Fox. MySpace, at the height of MySpace, became MySpace Karaoke. Make your own greeting cards, elf yourself, with over 2 billion elves created. Make your own radio ads, which was called Target Spot. Was sold to Radionomy. It was a joint venture with CBS Radio where anyone could create their own radio ad, just like you can create your own Google ad and traffic it to over 1,600 terrestrial radio stations and have it played and pay for it, etc. So all about consumers, non-professionals, creating media, expressing themselves, sharing themselves. Then I did the first mobile live streaming in the US called You Now, which was the kind of original mobile live streaming before Facebook Live and Instagram Live and Twitter Periscope. And that grew to about 120 million user sessions a month. And there, we were the first to introduce a digital economy in the context of a two-sided marketplace where people could buy into a virtual currency, which was normal at the time. Zynga games, no cash, poker, all kinds of stuff you can buy in. But at the time, there wasn't the sort of cash out on the other side. And so we introduced that, and it was really a big, an important step in the creator economy, because until then, they were mostly earning from ad revenues and not from microtransactions. And so that experience drove us to become number 3 in the App Store in the social category, and had a big impact and sort of taught us to manage a digital economy at scale at
Mm-hmm.
9 figures, just sharing with creators and really innovating and being pioneers in the creator economy.
Um,
Um,
Cool, thank you. That's great. So you kind of know what you're doing when it comes to user-generated content, director-creator, platforms, marketplaces. Like you kind of got a track record, like the Matrix game. By the way, still the best movie ever made, even though it was done. You know that movie was like 1999, dude. Like that's like 23 years ago, and I still cannot believe how like beyond or like it was way ahead of its time, wasn't it?
dude, I was working on it and I didn't understand it at the time. It was crazy.
That's cool. And so I'm curious to maybe stay here for a while. Why are you so successful at this one thing? Like, I don't mean to be reductionist, but I mean in the context that you specialize. Why? What would you put it down to? Is it the way that you envision opportunities? Is it timing? Is it, uh, you know, is it something else? Like, why have you been able to create such a proven track record?
Um, I think I did my undergraduate in film. And when I was doing film, It was the early 90s, and it was just when digital video was coming out. And we started working with digital video on the computer, and starting to program the moving image. And that was sort of, how should I say it, an establishing kind of experience. And I was taking to nonlinear and interactive content and the ability for regular people to manipulate content, create content, etc. And so I continued to do my master's studies in the interactive telecommunication program at NYU, which was really an engineering school inside of an art school, where we continued to experiment with these ideas of inputs into the computer. You can, interact with the computer through dance, through voice, through levers, through mixers, and what is the output that is generated out of that. And that was highly experimental. It was literally before the internet. And then when the internet came, there was like a commercial opportunity to take these, skills and passion of, creating, games and experiences, interactive experiences, and putting them online to find a larger audience. And so being there early, I got a lot of experience in doing it. I probably created over like 50 games and enhanced CDs and CD-ROMs and, audio mixers, video mixers, photo mixers. And so it's like, and nobody's ever asked me that question, so I appreciate it. I probably put in my 10,000 hours, so to speak, on the topic. And then I remember vividly thinking early on, we're programming the moving image. At one point, we're going to be programming the moving dollar. And when those two things come together, it will be really interesting. And I didn't know how it was going to come together. And it wasn't until I was doing YouNow live streaming and, starting to work with a big, two-sided economy and managing a digital economy, that it all came together around, gamified social experiences, and where people would not be only consuming media, creating media, collaborating around media, but also caring to, pay and bring money to play in order to enhance their experience.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's probably a good point of departure to get into Revel. So, what is the context for Revel? Obviously, I would imagine it's building on your previous successes and kind of evolving your thinking into a new opportunity. But what is the problem, would you say, that Revel is solving?
Well, social media has not really changed in the past 15 years. The creators put up content, and the followers like it, view it, comment on it, consume it, and that's really the story. Anybody can be a creator, anybody can be a follower. That's the environment that exists out there. I think there's been a lot of progress and a lot of catering to creators, and that has happened over the past 15 years, as in revenue share, subscription, creator tools, etc. And so the creator economy was born, and that's a whole huge industry today. What hasn't changed at all is the followers. The followers are still the followers. They're the likers, the viewers, the payers, etc. And what blockchain technology is bringing to the table on this front is the ability for people to own their own digital assets. And that is a big deal and a big breakthrough and a new dimension in media and in personal media. I don't know if you're following, but Instagram has been introducing digital collectibles. Twitter has announced that they're doing it. Facebook is building a whole metaverse. All of the social media platforms are hyper aware that this is a huge deal, and they all want to make sure that they are doing the right thing to prepare for a world in which people own their own digital assets. And so what we are doing, unlike the big incumbents, is building from the bottom up a platform where everyone owns their assets. And that means that if they don't like the platform, they can take their videos, their photos, and move it to another platform. Why? Because they own it. It's not that their data is being exploited and their photos are being exploited for advertising. No, they own it and they can take it, and they own their social graph and they can take it. And so the power is shifting from the big incumbent social media conglomerates to the end users. And that's a fascinating, design space to work in. And what does it mean that followers can own an edition of the video that you just uploaded? And is it financial stake? Is it a psychological stake? Is it community stake? Is it a governance stake? And so there's just so much there, but the experience and the value proposition for followers is going to be changing for the first time. And those are hundreds of millions and billions of people who are not going to be just satisfied with being the likers, the viewers, and the payers. As soon as they experience just a little bit of what it means to have a stake in the network that they're participating in the media of the person that they're following. If I follow you and, I own one of your, 50 editions of a video of yours, I have an interest that you grow, that you succeed, that you have more influence, that there'll be more demand for the stuff that you generate because, my thing will potentially have, more value. But it's not just financial. As a matter of fact, it's mostly not financial. It means that I'm part of a community of people who are now, the Matt Brown community of owners. And we saw that play out a lot in Web3, and we're bringing it effectively to the masses.
It's so interesting, isn't it? I mean, I think to your point, like media, by and large, hasn't really changed, has it? I mean, in the last 15 years, say. If anything, it's been proliferated, democratized from an access perspective, but really the economics around media and up until the birth of NFTs and blockchain and crypto assets and smart contracts and things like that, like it hasn't really changed. And even then, like the whole massive sort of NFT craze, the tulip bubble of NFTs, where Gary Vaynerchuk was selling his stupid drawings at Christie's. I mean, God, the world lost its mind. But anyway, it's fun, isn't it? And it's giving creators or content creators like Gary, or should I say, his 150 content creators that he has doing content every day. It does open up an entirely new paradigm. My question, though, is really around timing, because I asked you up front, like, why have you been so successful? Was it timing? And I think in many cases, I mean, especially now with the crypto crash that's going on, it may be too early. I don't know, but that's my question. Like, because this idea of like Web3, like what is Web3? I don't know. It could be blockchain, could be NFTs, could be a whole bunch of shit in this space. And my experience has been is that most 99% of crypto-based startups are looking for a problem to solve. I'm not saying that I mean, obviously you've solved this problem, and NFTs is probably like the only space. Like if you think about the metaverse and how much money Mark's dropping on developing this thing, scaring shareholders to death, like it's a phenomenal money, and there's no product. And funnily enough, the only space that I can see the metaverse really working is in fantasy sports betting. So there's a startup called Sideman Sports. They were supposed to come on the show today, couldn't make it, unfortunately. So they will be coming, guys. But they do fantasy sports betting, coming from a gaming background similar to you, and that's their play. And they're super funded, crazy revenue, but it's a very specific use case for Web3, quote unquote. But it's not media. Do you know what I'm trying to say? So, so my question basically, Addie, is like, when is this a real thing? Like from an entrepreneur community perspective, an investor perspective, where are we in this hype cycle context?
Yeah, it's a great question. And, it's a real thing in a sense that it's working today and our product is live. And we have, hundreds of creators and thousands of people on the platform right now. We can take a look, and our approach here is to bring the functionality to the masses. And so I think that where folks have stumbled in the Web3 space is taking a very purist approach in which You expect everyone to jump through hoops, to have wallets, to deal with, bad user experience by definition, not because they're bad designers, because that's the world of pure Web3, not to be on the app stores. So that means that you're loading it through, mobile web pages and you don't have that tactile and good experience. And our approach is very different. And we're not alone in this approach. We call it Web 2.5, where,
Yes, that's probably right.
where you bring the value proposition of Web3, which is ownership of the assets, potentially ownership of the data, etc. But you use the Web2 distribution, the Web2 user experience in order to talk to people where they are. And so, if you'd like, I'm happy to give you, a quick overview of, what Revel is, and then maybe do a quick, tour of the product.
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's show us what you built. So if you are, while Addie's bringing up the screen share, um, if you are catching this on the audio version, guys, head on over to YouTube. If you haven't subscribed, go and subscribe now. Addie, over to you.
Awesome. So, Revel.xyz is a social collectibles platform. That means that anyone can create their digital collectibles, not just sports stars or baseball cards or influencers, etc., but any media that you are emitting, and we all together emit billions of pieces of media today, is by definition um, a candidate to become a digital asset, and a digital asset with potential financial value. And so effectively, you can think about it as a cross between Instagram and Robinhood crossed with social game economics. Instagram, because it's personal media publishing, very similar to what we know. Robinhood, because you have a portfolio, and your portfolio is not like AMC and Tesla and whatever else stocks, but people. I own a little bit of Matt and a little bit of Polly and a little bit of Betty. And then social game economics is we are taking, economic concepts that may not be accessible to everyday users, like supply, demand, inflation, etc., and turning that into simple game rules, like, collect 3 and get a bonus. And so that's the short of it. You're seeing here on the screen our live app and our homepage. These are some of the creators that are on the app. Cyrus Dobre with 9.8 million on TikTok, 6.3 million, et cetera, et cetera. We can see here the collectors who are gaining their net worth. We can see here the trending creators right now. We have a feed in which you can see some of the content that is being published right now. This is 3 minutes ago, 7 minutes ago, 13 minutes ago. So a very, active. You said, is it early? Well, it's burgeoning in a sense that, if you're able to speak to regular users, Web2 users in their language, you can bring them some of the value propositions. And then let's look, how it works. Effectively, it's very much like Monopoly. So I get this offer from Laureen, who is offering me, 19 assets, 13 common and 6 rare, for my one asset, Sassy Warrior. Okay, I don't love that. This guy is offering me 1 for 1. This guy's offering me 10 Revel dollars for this thing that's worth over 1,000. You know what? I'm going to go back to Laureen and I'm going to tell her, you know what? I'd like you to add some cash to that. Let's say another 50 Revel dollars. And I'd like for you to add a bunch of assets as well. And now I'm going to go ahead and counter the offer. And she's getting a push notification saying, hey, Addie just countered your offer. What are you going to do about it? And so there's a lot packed in there. One, it's not necessarily a money game. You can just do barter. And 96% of the people don't even connect their wallets because it's a fun game to barter your stuff. And you can still get ahead because other people may bid on it, et cetera, and things can move up and down in value. like a marketplace. But for those who really want to get ahead, they can bring additional funds in order to be a connoisseur and a collector. Here we can see my the ownership of the people that I own, effectively, my portfolio, what I own of what. Let's go ahead and mint for a minute. Part of what's going on here is a tight grip on the supply. What you don't want is unlimited supply of garbage. Now, garbage is by definition part of the world of user generated, but you want to limit it. You want to, for some scarcity to exist. And we employ what we call proof of demand minting. That means everyone can mint their initial collection, but only people who have proven demand for their stuff can mint more. And we can talk about the economics of what does it mean, proven demand, et cetera, et cetera. But again, we try to simplify it and break it down for regular people. It's just collect 3 and you get a bonus, they can mint more, et cetera. So let me go ahead and just do this minting, and then that'll be the end of the demo. When I'm minting a collection, I'm minting 3 photos or videos. And let me go ahead and select a few photos of mine. So this will be my unique, and this will be my rare. I'll do this really quickly. I may not even publish this. Here's another one. I just want to kind of show the social distribution that's going on at the end of this experience. And here's another one. And so I've just created a collection. One unique, which is a one and only, rare, which has a few copies, and common, which has a bunch of copies, and copies being addition. And notice what is happening now. The system is telling me that it's taking my 3 pieces of media and it's turning it into 81 editions. My one and only unique, which I get to keep, a bunch of rares, which I keep some, and some will go to airdrop to new users, and a lot of commons, which I keep some, and some will go to users. So I keep 10 of these editions. 6 of these editions will go to new users coming in. That's the free economy where you don't have to pay. You get your starter pack, and anyone can play. Nobody has built a huge consumer network by having a payment gate or a connect wallet up front. And so that's what's going on here. And then 66 editions are going to my collectors. These are people who have worked hard to collect a series of mine. They collected one unique, one rare, and one common mine. They effectively locked it. They took it off the supply, improving my economy, my personal economy on this network. And for that, 2 things happened. Every time they did that, I got to mint more. And now when I click mint collection, which I won't because I didn't really put effort into these photos, they're going to get a push notification saying, congratulations, Addie just minted a new collection. Here's your harvest. Here's your bonus as his collector. So they're getting, in a way, a piece of me, and they're part of my community. So I'll stop here. And that was just a quick introduction.
It's amazing, man. It really is cool. It's nice to see someone who's not just talking about it and who's actually built something that people are using. And clearly you've thought through this thing pretty carefully. Otherwise it wouldn't be successful, as it is. So there's a couple things I wanted to get into. The first one is from the creator perspective. And it's so interesting. I love what I do because I meet people like you. So I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and I was in an art gallery, and I just shot a show at I think it's like the Jasper Center in New York for a client of mine. And anyway, it was like a function for them. Otis was my client, and anyway, so we're standing around in this art gallery, and I met this guy. His name's Steven. I'm actually meeting him on Friday, who's also got an interest in your space. Anyway, so we're looking around this art gallery. And there were different types of pictures and things like that, different types of art. And I downloaded the price list using a QR code, and I looked at the pricing. And it was like, and then I'm like, holy shit, like this is really expensive. And then I played a game, and I took random people around, like my client's wife, and I said, "What do you think this is worth?" And she's like, $1,500. I'm like, "No, try $25,000." And she's like, "What? No way!" Like, and I kept doing this, and it was very apparent quite early on that when it comes to digital art or creative expression or creative work, the uh, the way that we assign value to different pieces of work is very different and very subjective in all cases. Like, you don't find a situation where it's like most of us say it's 25 grand. It's like it varies. It really does. And I asked the question, like, how do you assign value to creative work? So in your case, you showed the three, like the rare, and then and then blah blah blah, and you uploaded those three pieces of work. From a creative perspective, how do you know if what you are doing is going to create demand?
It's a really important and interesting question. And when we think about this, what we're doing, we're not thinking about it as a creator platform. We're thinking about it as a people platform. Much like Instagram is a people platform. Creators are a really important cohort, and they're driving a lot of activity, and we're catering to them up the wazoo. But still, it's a people's platform. Everybody can be a creator, everybody can be a follower, and there's that symbiotic relationship. And that's very, very powerful, because it opens the door for, anyone to start climbing up this, social ladder, financial ladder, etc. And a new cast of creators are being, come to life every year. We don't assign value to anything. The market assigns the value. So when I create it, and maybe there's like a default price of a penny, but when I create it, until somebody bids on it, until there's demand for it, it's worthless. And so, in the end of the day, what we have here with Revel.xyz is a marketplace for personal media, for what we call social collectibles. And the value is based on supply and demand. Think about it. Paris Hilton mints a picture of her dog. I mint a picture of my dog. Hers is worth $9,000. Mine is worth nothing. It's the same dog. It's not about the dog. It's not about the photo. It's not about the art. It's about a lot of other stuff, about popularity, affinity, scarcity, all kinds of other things. And the reality is, there's a lot of people between me and Paris Hilton. There's Betty from the home room, who is gaining 50 new followers a week. And, she's only valued at $1.75. Maybe I'm a genius for, bidding $2 for it. Why? I see her trend. And so, that is the world of the long tail. And, the creator economy has been going long tail, long tail, long tail. Today, a lot of people are coming out of being in the long tail into becoming more of a creators. And a lot of that long tail itself is more and more financially literate, media savvy, and, interested in additional value propositions beyond being the liker and the viewer, and having that stake, having that ownership in somebody else's network, etc., whether it's financial, psychological, governance, etc., is very valuable. So, long answer to that question.
Okay, so it's about the person, not the art. Is that correct?
Well, listen, art is art. Art is art. So there's a delta there. There's definitely a delta, and it's important to have good content, and good content has its own value. But we all know that is few and far between in the world of user-generated media and mass consumer media. And so there is an element of the person, and there is an element of the content. If there was no element of the content, we could be, they could be publishing little chips that people can buy. They're not. They're publishing personal photos and personal media that people can have affinity to. But it's a combination of the two.
So the other question I had from your demo was, and you mentioned it earlier, was this idea of, I think you said social economics. Is that correct? Or social gamification or something like that. What role does that, what is it, and how have you applied it in the design of this platform so that one, a creative feels like they're getting the ability to commercialize their own work, whatever that is, person to person, different types of art, what have you, and versus, say, a collector You know what I mean? Like who's collecting these things. So there's buy and supply. So what is this idea of social economics or gamification, and how have you applied it to ensure that you guys have created a platform that actually scales?
I think that every game has game rules, and the cross between social and gaming is a very, very, powerful sort of place to be. Um, People are excited to, or let's call it, people react to rules. If you and I are meeting over dinner, we're talking, we may be playing a board game. Everybody loves board games. Why? It gives you a set of constraints. Everybody takes their turn, etc. Everybody knows the rules. You know what to follow, etc. Um, what we have here is using gamification in order to educate people about a marketplace for personal media, and using gamification in order to drive an economy. If everybody could just come here and print as much media as they wanted, the media will be further worthless. However, if there is built-in scarcity, if there is some kind of a work that you have to do, in my case, I need to drive demand for my stuff. I need somebody to collect it. I need to go on Twitter. I need to go on Instagram, tell my followers to come. Somebody's collecting it. Okay, good. I created value into the network, and now I can mint more. And so the rules of the game are meant to govern the economy in a way that does not feel to regular people, to 15-year-olds, to my mom, as I am participating in an economic endeavor. No, I'm participating in a social endeavor. I'm participating in a game, in a social game. And the economy is kind of behind the scene, always present, but you don't need to be a PhD in order to run your own economy. And I want to make one more point. You have, Betty has 5 million users, followers. Betty has 5 million followers. I have 500 followers. Her her supply need is very different than my supply need. Her optimal level of, let's call it, revenue and engagement with that community of 5 million probably would require her to mint a lot more than my optimal level of engagement and revenue for 500 people. I should probably mint a lot less. She can become more popular or less popular. I can become more popular or less popular. And there's a lot of people in between. How do you run her personal economy, my personal economy in a month when my popularity changes, hers in 2 months when she changes, and everybody in the middle? How do you run millions of people's personal economies with the same simple, well, without them having to worry about, oh, how much should I charge for it? Oh, how many should I mint? How many editions should I have? How many should I keep? Because maybe they'll grow up in value and I'll be happy that I kept them. All of these questions are tough economic planning questions. That's not, a mass consumer product. What we've done is we've taken that, put it behind the scenes, put it behind the proof of demand minting, the simple collect 3 and get a bonus and unlock the mint, and allow that to manage the economy of unlimited amount of people.
So how do you make money?
Revel keeps 1 or 2 editions from every mint, and in the future we may put those on auctions. We have plans there, but right now we are not collecting a cut.
Mm-hmm. But so I mean, how does this? How do you guys? Well, maybe if you were to stop and fast forward 5 years, I mean, are you taking a percent of the value of the Revel dollar? I think you call it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, is that is kind of like a transaction fee type thing? Is that kind of where you see it going over and above, releasing previously unminted or collectibles that potentially were not taken off the market or unavailable or rare?
Yeah, maybe. It's very early, and we're really focusing on growing the user base. We're not focused on revenue tomorrow morning, but any network that is dealing in a financial marketplace eventually has multiple different options in terms of monetization. And, we look forward to the day where we turn it on because it's meaningful.
But you're not going to serve ads, correct?
Correct.
God, remember that whole thing? It's like if you don't have a product but you have lots of users, like your users are your product, Facebook, all those sorts of things. And it's like, damn, like I hate that idea of people commercializing me, and my data, and basically saying, cool, well, me and millions of other people like Matt Brown, you know, based on his interests, serve him ads.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to Mark Zuckerberg, who sees the writing on the wall and is investing so much in, this next generation of media. And I know he's obsessed with the metaverse and the 3D of it, et cetera, et cetera. But some of these tens of billions are also going to, ensure that assets are owned by the users who create them. And, I think that what he's thinking is that he rather be the visionary who is going to cannibalize himself, because if he doesn't, then someone will cannibalize him.
Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, it's exactly true. I mean, I went last week. I took my son to, I forget the name of this place, but it's basically like a VR room or like a game center. So when I was, 13 years old, I would go to, a place called Goodwood, and there'd be all these arcade machines and Street Fighter and, like the dropping bomb aircraft games and things like that. Like that was my thing. And spent a fortune of money there, or at least my parents' money. But I took my kid to this place, and let me actually Google it here while I'm busy talking. I was amazed at the experience, VR experience, Denver Sandbox. That's what it's called, Sandbox VR. I was amazed at the experience of it because it was like truly immersive. I was like, holy shit, this is like where it's all going to go. Okay, fine. The graphics weren't quite, like I wasn't feeling like it was like totally immersive and totally incredible, but it was certainly going in that direction. And so, to your point around Mark and the metaverse and things like that, he's taking a lot of heat about the way that it looks and like the applications of it and that. But I think you're right. Like he is trying to cannibalize himself because this is going to happen. One way or another, it is going to happen. But where I find that a lot of Web2 creators fall flat is on the how. Like, how would you actually do this? Over and above putting on a VR headset and a backpack and feeling like you're part of a game and shooting zombies, But I'm talking specifically, like, let's take the Matt Brown show, for instance. How would you suggest that I create ownership through content, or digital ownership through the content that I produce? So, for instance, am I selling you the ownership of this episode? Do you know what I mean? Like, how does one think strategically about commercializing a Web 2 platform with a Web 2.5 extension? Because I think about these things, and I always go, I don't know, like I'm not able to actually jump across that chasm because I don't have that. I haven't seen it. Like if I think about, there's Odyssey, which is like YouTube with crypto on the back of it, so you get you earn for every minutes of content consumed, you earn a cryptocurrency like Odyssey. Like I've seen that, but like I don't get it. If you think purely around like direct to creator and me being able to truly commercialize or extend the work that I'm doing and make money off it and build and give my community and my audience a sense of ownership in the Matt Brown show, like how do you start?
Yeah, I mean, I remember what was the name? The jock from New York, Howard Stern. I remember when he moved to XM and everybody thought he was crazy because he was giving up these millions of to hundreds of millions of viewers to go to a platform that had 10 million viewers at the time. But he was going into subscription, and he was effectively, changing the model from advertising in that case, to a subscription model. And I think that we're going to see more and more of that. Today, the format on YouTube may not necessarily lend itself in order to, commercialize it into NFTs or digital collectibles or whatnot. There's also, it's a two-way street. It's like, okay, let's say that I did get a 3-minute portion from your show that I did own. What can I really do with it? What's the utility? What's my value in it? But, the next generation platforms, it's that you may be creating with it, may have those features built in where, for every episode of the Matt Brown show that you view, you get a badge. And if you have 10 badge, you get a bonus. And if you have, this, you get invited. And you get to make comments, and you may get super comments, and you're a member of the community. You have status. And I'm Matt Brown's, #1 owner or #1 fan. And what does that mean? And maybe he listens to me more because I have status in the community, and maybe my questions get asked. I don't know. I don't want to riff on it and make it up, but what we know is that it's going to be the relationship between the creator and the collaboration with the community that have a shared interest because they're all, in a way, co-owners of the same assets.
Mm. So what's your advice if someone wants to start in this journey? Like, do they just do research? Like help me help myself, because I know a lot of content creators and they're as clueless as I am.
Well, first of all, we talk to content creators all day long. I talk to probably 5 or 10 a week. And one of the interesting observations is 95% of them have never owned an NFT. 80% of them know very little about the blockchain. And they're all very, very curious, kind of like you are now. And they're like, it's kind of like, I'm glad you called because, I've been thinking about it. And, it all seems so complicated and not accessible. And if I can't understand it, my followers are not going to understand it. And it's like, what's going on here? And so we have those conversations, and I'm smiling because our solution is it shouldn't be complicated. It should work on your iPhone. It should work in the App Store and the Google Store. And, your followers should be able to get it tomorrow morning. But then, being able to bring the value proposition of the ownership. Yes, I own these assets. Yes, every time my 2 fans are trading between them, I get a percentage. Why? Because you can do that on the blockchain. You can emit royalties on the blockchain, and we support royalties. And so creators intuitively just understand it from seeing it work in front of their eyes. And that is something that not a lot of people are doing, as you mentioned. And so we're in this unique situation where we can bring Web3 to Web2 users. And by the way, we'd love to onboard you and anyone else who's listening, hit us up. And we have a contact on the Revel.xyz website, and we'd love to onboard you. We'll spend an hour with you. We'll take the time. We have every week a community play the game where new people are learning about it. And we look at that as our mission, is to educate people about the value of digital asset ownership.
Cool. Well, I'm keen because I do think it's interesting, and I think it's a future fit idea. And I think if you get in early, it's like if you were one of the first people tweeting, like, you get to own those economics. Same thing with TikTok. And, maybe this is the same story with what you've done. I want to change gears. Fist pump. Yeah, baby. I want to change gears for a moment and quickly talk about funding. So according to Crunchbase, my soon-to-be media partner, God, you actually need to give me a free license, a punchy every episode, is you've raised just under $6 million last closed October 17th, which is like recently. Curious to get your view, Addie. Like, what was your experience raising money in the current market? Was it harder than you anticipated, easier than you anticipated? What was your experience?
First of all, it's a hard market right now. And that said, there is a lot of smart money out there that understands the opportunities, whether they are in artificial intelligence, in Web3, in other up and coming markets. And if I'm giving advice to people, it is to build. It is to bootstrap. It is to do whatever you need to do, is find, good people to work with and build and have a product that people love, that inspires you, that inspires other people. And then it will inspire also investors and money to come in. But, to think that you'll be there at home with a PowerPoint and come up with a genius idea without having, sort of the track record before that and be able to raise in this market, that is going to be tough. But if you're a builder, there's avenues, and there's going to be a respect for the work, and funding is available.
So, Addie, what's the secret to success now in this market, would you say?
I think it's hunker down. I think it's build and show traction, and persevere. Make sure you're not running out of gas and you have the 18 months to 2 year runway that you need to have, because all down markets don't last forever, as we know, but we also can't time exactly where it ends. So you need to be more conservative now.
Hmm. And one of the, I can't remember where I saw this or somewhere, a conversation or whatever. And I think maybe I'll mention it and love to get your view on it. But in the context of raising money, it's I think what a lot of founders do is they want to talk about their product. It's like, here's what we've built. And they forget to actually make the growth story the hero of that pitch, because like, we know what's coming, don't we? It's like, it's like kind of like what we went through today and what I do in terms of my interview structure. It's like, what's the problem? What have you built in the process of building? How big is the opportunity? What's your traction? What proof do you have? Da da da. And oftentimes, I think startup founders they just really suck at like packaging their growth story for investors. I think it's a skill that oftentimes they lack, or if they have it, they're stuck inside the bottle that they can't read the label. And so oftentimes they need like someone to stand and be, hey, this is actually how to package this thing, so that when you're talking to an investor, it resonates with them. Because I agree with you. I don't think that it's so bad that there's no money, going into venture capital being invested into startups, for instance. There's a lot of activity. The market's super liquid. It's just that the investments are, well, the investors are being more let's just say selective around what they want to invest in. And the way that they choose, my experience is, it's based on the growth story, right? Like collectively, obviously there's the team and all that kind of stuff, and sustainable competitive advantages and all this kind of stuff. But really, it's about the holistic growth story. Would you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. Investors want to see traction at any stage, even in the seed stage. And in the seed stage, the traction may not be revenue. It may be product cadence. It may be team building cadence. And later on in Series A, you're talking about real metrics of active users, of revenue, of retention, etc. And then later on in the growth stages, it's all about the velocity, and how steep is that curve, and that is what the story is about.
So, Addie, I'd love to have a bit of fun with you for a moment. So, I'd love to give you the keys to the Matt Brown Show time machine. And if you could go back to yourself on day one of Revel and give yourself one piece of advice about building this company, what would that be?
Um, I think it would be to go swimming more, do more yoga, and really, it's such a demanding uh, position to be in, and the responsibility for the team, for the users, for the investors, that you really don't want to be out there smoking a joint. You want to be at your sharpest, and it pays off. A healthy mind and a healthy body, and so that's what I try to do. I communicated to the folks around me, and I think people underappreciate it, because especially when you're in the pressure of the grind, you don't find time. And often being able to step outside, look from the outside, as you said, from outside the bottle versus inside the bottle. And it takes a little bit of disconnecting to do on a regular basis, and discipline.
Hmm. Yeah, so work on your business, not in it necessarily, or at least carve out the time to do that sort of work. Cool. So, um, maybe because you've had so much success in the context of like user generated content and live streaming, media, socials, etc. Um, if you think about your whole career, like what would you say is the biggest failure that you've had in your experience, and what did you learn from that?
I think that not all businesses succeed. And when they don't succeed, you have to ask yourself why. And what I found is when one is extremely passionate, where they can't help themselves with a desire to build, that is the a tall tale predictor of success. And when one is approaching thing without that zeal, and maybe not, is the market big enough? A lot of, self-doubting and questioning and whatnot, and maybe I should, yes, I should do it. It's an opportunity, etc. Don't do it. It needs to be burned inside of you for it to have a chance to succeed.
Mm. Yeah, that's such a great point. Like oftentimes, well, I know for a fact, like if you actually define yourself not by what you say yes to, but by what you say no to. And this is the quintessential friction point, isn't it, for visionaries such as yourself? And my wife says I'm a visionary too. Is that we're able to see things, we're able to see the future before it happens. Most entrepreneurs are kind of like in that context, aren't they? And because of that, it's a double-edged sword, because when you're in it, you start to connect. Oh, what if we did this and what if we did that? And so you have to be responsible with what you execute on, to your point. And I love that saying, like, it has to burn inside of you before you actually take it to the world. Because there's that great saying that I think it was Einstein. He said, if you have a problem to solve and 60 minutes to solve it, how do you spend your time? And the answer is, for those of you who are wondering, it's actually a great interview question, by the way, if you're interviewing someone. But it's you spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem, and then 5 minutes, thinking about the possible solution. Because the more you think about the problem, the more you start to see, the more dots you connect, the more your visionary capability starts to become or manifest. But it's a discipline, to your point, to say no. Like even now, I'm like, I'm not going to go into any platform space for at least a year, because I know if I go now, it's too early. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't have thought through things. I would be accepting things for the way they are, the existing premise, not building something for the way that it could be, which is what you've done with
Yeah,
your.
except one platform, because we're inviting you to Revel.xyz.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, look, Addie, it's been a real privilege chatting to you, dude. I think you're doing something truly novel, and creating things that are novel in a uncertain market, and that is hard, which is what you've done. Those are the things that are truly valuable. So, congrats on all your success, mate, and really looking forward to seeing where you're going to go.
Thank you so much, Matt. It was really a pleasure, and I look forward to continuing our conversation.
Anytime. Thanks, everybody.